This is the Pro Audio Suite podcast. Quick Bites.
Welcome to another Pro Audio Suite Quick Bite. This week, we're looking at different kinds of studios that you may need if you're a beginner, if you're kind of mid-range, I guess, or a pro. We've all got our ideas of what works, so let's do a bit of a round table and find out what our panel thinks.
I'll start with the beginner. Well, if you want to get a beginner package out of the way, this is one that I find is, there's a million ways to go, right, when you're starting out.
AI1 NTG4.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could just outfit your studio with some really affordable gear from a couple different companies. We are sponsored by Rode, so I'll start with the Rode package, and that certainly could be like a Rode NT1 or a Rode NTG4. The Rode NT1 is a little bit flatter, honest sounding mic, if you could call it that. Whereas the NTG4 has a little bit more color, possibly directionality, or maybe a lot more. So it's a little more forgiving when your home studio is less than quiet, less than perfect. Like my refrigerator is right across the room from me. And I can use the NTG4 like I am right now and get tolerably low noise floor. So the NTG4 is a nice mic to use, or the Rode NT1. Audio-Technica makes the 2035, also a very affordable, good-sounding, serviceable condenser mic for sure.
Billy Irish uses the 2020, right?
Yeah, I think the 2035 has enough upgrades to the design to make it worthy the extra cost. Like a 2020 is $100. The 2035 is $150.
I've got a 2040. Mount. I actually have a 20, is it a 4040?
Probably a 4040. That's $300 US.
Yeah, that's pretty nice mic, actually.
Also really nice. Yeah, they go up in noise floor specs. Like the noise floor gets better as you go up in price for sure. Recently, the 2020 got a lot of press when they released an article about Billie Eilish's production flow, and that they basically used a 2020 on a few of their early hits.
Yeah, I think they switched to a Neumann after that.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Trust me, I'm hearing the latest cuts and going, that's not the 2020.
Yeah.
But you can get away with a pretty affordable mic. And then interface-wise, we've been trying, and I'm using now the Rode the Rode AI1 with great success. Mm-hmm. And just so there's some, other brands thrown in the mix. I've mentioned before, I love the Steinberg UR12. Both very, very affordable interfaces in the $100 range, and either will do you well. And then software-wise, Audacity. If you really got to use free software, Audacity is probably the best free program. It's on Mac and Windows, and if you're on Mac, Twisted Wave absolutely it trumps everything else out there, I think, in terms of learning curve, simplicity, quality of tools, and that's a pretty nice starting point. Throw in a good pair of headphones, under $100, like the Audio-Technica 20, ATH 20s, 30s, 40s. I mean, even the 20s, the cheapest ones, sound pretty darn good. So, that gets you a nice starter package, and then you just need to find a really quiet place to record in your house and drape the place with blankets. Get rid of all the echo.
Perfect. I'd actually go along with that. I'd probably maybe even go for the NTG5 because I really like it, and there's still only, I think in America, was it $500
US.
Is it $500 US? Yeah.
It's a little spendy in the US.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The AI1, I really like that. It's got great headphone app. And I'd probably, if I was beginning, I probably wouldn't go for over the ears. I'd probably go in-ears, only so you can get more of an accurate picture of what you've recorded or what you are recording. And then, like you've done, if you could afford it, get the tri-booth. But if you can't, just get some blankets and stuff and make yourself a little blanket fort.
Make yourself a wee hutty.
Indeed.
Blankets.
A teepee.
So
a teepee.
I would throw out the Shure X2U or some equivalent. I especially like the interfaces that include the ability to blend the direct microphone with the output, so you can kind of get your own monitor blend.
Yeah, the monitor mix control is handy. That
is something I miss on the AI1, to be honest. And they're just like the size of your fist, the Shures. So those make, they're $100, do the trick very well. They're respectable enough preamp. From a microphone point of view, just to throw something new out there, there's so many $100 mics out there, but I would conjecture that any one of the middle reputable, like, Marshall, even Samsung, the bottom end of Audio-Technica, those are all going to basically provide a similar sound. So things like the Marshall 990 or the 1006.
AKA MXL. Yeah, that's
MXL, right,
brand.
Marshall. Yeah, sorry. And then really just whatever headphones that you're comfortable with. But I would think that if you're starting out, you're doing remote connections, that's the only time where, maybe just the little earbuds, because they isolate so well, you don't have to worry as much about getting specifically closed back earphones that are solid. And those little earbuds, they isolate great. So there's, those are like, you pick up a decent pair of those for $30 and they actually sound pretty good. Something from like Skull Candy or something.
Yeah, you're not using these, keep in mind, you're not using these to do like mix a gold record or make detailed engineering decisions. These are just providing you something reasonably accurate that you can hear what you're recording and playing back so that you can, clean up your file before you send it.
And then regarding software, it's not officially free, but, Reaper, I think, is amazingly powerful for the price. And if you pay full retail as a user, it's like $40. And it's probably the best bang for the buck DAW out there. You could grow with it for 100 years and still not find all the features in it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But do you need all those features if you're just
not really
off? No, that's why I'm thinking Twisted Wave is a better option.
Yeah, Twisted Wave is much easier.
Yeah,
that's very true. I mean, it's not quite. It's like just a hard editor compared to something that lets you really manipulate the edits and do crossfades like really accurately. So they are very different in a sense. But if raw recording is the goal and basic editing is the goal, then yes, they both do it in Twisted Wave with much simpler interface. But the whole package should be like less than $250. You should be able to get set up with something that is pretty much going to actually generate professional results, especially if you put it in a decent room, not like I am in now. The other thing to watch out for is maybe trying to make sure that you get an audio interface that is compatible with both. If you're an iPhone user, something that can be used on iOS and Mac OS, or on the Windows side if it has on the Android side, if it has an Android driver. These days, that might be very useful, especially if you just need to pop out a quick audition or something. So,
but I was going to say, actually, we were talking about the NT1 and the AI one. You can get the kit. That is a good way to start because you get a shock mount, you get a lead, you get a pop guard, you get the mic, you get the interface, all in one box.
And how much are those kits?
Well, the kit here in Australia is $350. Roughly.
Okay.
I'm thinking in the US it's going to be probably $250.
That might be less, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
$1. Yeah.
And that has everything but the headphones, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you throw a $30 pair of headphones on it, and you're set.
How about you, Robbo?
I think you guys have pretty much nailed everything I was going to throw out there. But yeah, I had to go along with that. I mean, I've just set up a voice booth under the stairs for my wife to use, and she's just running the AI one and the NTG4 and into Twisted Wave. And it's working perfectly. And just a cheap pair of headphones that we bought 2 Christmases ago. Well, she bought 2 Christmases ago to Sennheiser headphones to wear on the plane on the way over to Fiji. So it's working perfectly.
Excellent. Okay, so now we're talking about mid-range. So we're going up a notch. George, do you want to kick off on that one?
Yeah, mid-range is such a muddled area, right?
Yes, it is.
Let's set a parameter. Let's say mid-range is mic interface and...
let's say $3,000 expenditure, put it that way.
Okay, mic interface and studio, like acoustic space.
$3,000 all up, set up a studio.
Under $3,000.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely throw in a plug for the Tri-Booth product in that price range. If you've got a quiet space, but you want to set up something quickly and have an acoustical space to record in that sounds very neutral and that's something you can count on and even possibly take with you if you need to. For around $1,500 US, you've got the tri-booth and all of the accessories therein, like the mic mount and the copy holder and all that stuff. So that takes care of a lot of little pieces in one package. And that leaves you another $1,000 for gear. And I'm not going to also rule out that you should spend a little bit of money on consulting. I'm going to toot my own horn.
Toot, toot.
But if you buy all this stuff and don't know what the hell you're doing with it, it's not going to do you a whole lot of good. So, like, let's say you spent $1,500 on like a tri-booth, or maybe you spent $1,500 on really cool acoustic panels and decked out your room. That's a really big part of it. Then you need a quality microphone, obviously. If you're stepping it up, certainly the Rode NT-G5 is a great place to start at the $500 ballpark. And then you can go certainly to the Neumann level with the TLM 102. Those are really quality products that are going to, be pretty much a guaranteed success for most people, I think, with the properly set up space. And interface-wise, this is where it gets interesting because you can spend a lot more money on interfaces than the $100, $150 devices we've already mentioned, with no real necessary noticeable quality improvement, because the preamps in all these interfaces are arguably pretty similar. They're just very accurate, very low noise preamps. As you pay more money, typically you might get a little bit more gain, sometimes even a lot more gain. So you can maybe use mics that are less sensitive, but you're really paying when you get down to it a lot you're really paying for more features. And there seems to be a big divide between like the $100 thing and what's really the next step in terms of interfaces. And it seems to really jump dramatically. There's really not much dramatically better until you spend at least $600, and that's going to be like the Apogee Duet.
Well, I would say that you first get into the more money, but usually they first start adding more channels, which no one needs.
More money, but it doesn't buy you more quality. It buys you more features, more channels, more bells and whistles on exactly like Robert said. So like for example, the 2i2 is $150, the 18i6, or I think they even have an 18i20 is maybe $500 or $600, and it just has a ton more inputs and outputs.
And then Behringer recently released a single rack space 8-channel 8 microphone preamp box for $250.
Right.
Yeah.
With Midas preamps, whatever.
Right. Yeah. They've always had very affordable preamps. So, exactly. So you pay more, but you get more inputs. You get more features. The only thing that really seems to me to upset that price per performance metric would maybe be the Audient ID4. It's around $200 US, and it is definitely a better quality AD converter preamp than maybe the more lowly interfaces. But man, I'll tell you, that's all in theory. In real world practice, I don't think you're going to hear a freaking difference between the ID4 and the cheaper stuff. But when you go way up in the price range, okay, a little bit more gain, a little bit higher quality converters, and then you start stepping in another class completely when you look at things like the Apollo and anything that allows emulating and processing of your signal while you're recording real time. And that's a whole nother ball of wax. So you look at all that and then you say, well, what's left now? Well, maybe you got $500 left. And that should really be spent on getting it all set up right. Whether it's me or somebody else, make sure that when you get these more sophisticated pieces of kit, especially the Apollo, but if you get the RME Babyface, which is fantastic interface, certainly a lot of these all have a learning curve to them. So get somebody to help you get them dialed in and set up, and make sure you really understand the tools that you have so you don't waste a lot of time. And software-wise, Twisted Wave is certainly pro at any level for a voice actor. Some people really like the additional tools available in something like Adobe Audition. Reaper for sure is like, you can't possibly have more features for the money. So that's obviously a no-brainer for someone that is Windows or Mac. Yeah, that's the cool thing about that. Let's say you start Windows but end up going Mac, your Reaper goes with you. So yeah, that's my blathering on about that topic.
What's the budget? Is it $3,000?
$3,000.
This is the
$3,000.
under 3,000.
Yeah.
So I got mine.
Okay, let's hear yours.
Well, I'd go the TLM 103, and then
Around 1,000.
yeah, that's $1,200 here in Australia. And then when I was building the booth next door for my wife that I talked about in the cheap side of things, I had listened to a preamp at my local studio store, and it was called the Golden Age Project Pro 73.
Yeah, it's a Neve
Yeah,
1073
73.
rip.
Yeah, which I really, really liked.
What are those, like
It was
$250?
$600. It was $600 bucks.
Yeah.
But
300 stateside.
yeah, right. Well, it was $600 here. I didn't buy it because, to be fair, it was sort of out of the budget of what I was doing at the time, and it was about the same time the AR1 turned up, so that went in. But I really liked it, so I would go with that for $600, and then that's only $1,800. And I would agree with what you said, George, is in terms of spending money with someone who's going to help you set all that up nicely. And yeah, I mean, as for software, I think at any level, it comes down to what you really want to do. If you just want to record your voice and send it off to the studio, then there's nothing wrong with Twisted Wave. If you want to start manipulating it, then yeah, I guess you start talking Pro Tools or whatever. But
So the rest of the money goes to maybe the acoustics.
well, yeah, sorry, and that
in
was
your
going to be
budget.
the last thing. Yeah, then the rest of that budget would go on someone helping you set up and your acoustics and all the rest of it that you need to take care of, and obviously a decent pair of headphones. Mm-hmm. Do you guys see speakers as necessary at this
No.
level? For me, I don't.
I mean, what are we talking about
I
here in the
really
mid-level?
don't.
We're talking about something that's very professional, but still only focused on voiceover as the goal.
Yeah,
Acting
pretty much.
performance.
And when we're talking about software, we're only really focusing on the recording end of it. There's obviously you start going into Isotope and Source Connect and everything else.
Right,
So-
plugins.
My honest opinion is that at this price point, there's a few things that you can choose to focus on or not, and it depends on where your biggest problems are that you're trying to solve. So if
Right.
noise is your biggest problem, you actually might be best off with a $200.50 setup and a whisper room. And put that money
Right,
all
a used
into the
whisper
whisper
room.
room, because that will get you the most
Yeah.
professional result, even with that MXL microphone and the $100 interface.
It's true.
Put the money where it counts, if I was going to say that. But if it's purely about gear and things that need power, the biggest choice in this area is, do I go with some interface that has a built-in preamp that I'm okay with? Do I get a real external preamp? Or do I completely complicate my life with an Apollo, which probably has like somewhere between the Apollos and the Antelopes and the Apogees, maybe the Audient, but pretty much the Apollo, Apogee, Antelope. Those are the interfaces that seem to have the most serious built-in preamps on them. George, I don't know if you'd agree.
Yeah,
RME too. Yes, RME's got
stuff.
good preamps built in there. So you're starting to look at a interface where you want to kind of tie yourself to the preamp, or maybe you just want to say, okay, all these companies are mainly just buying off-the-shelf converters, meaning that the converter in the Scarlett is probably almost just as good as the converter in the Babyface or something. They're usually using AKM chips. And so if the preamp is the defining factor, get yourself an external preamp, and that way you're not tied to this interface for life, and you can get different flavors or shop around and find the preamp that works for you. Maybe it's a Golden Age 1073. Maybe eventually it's like a John Hardy, something that's just absolutely undeniably, one of the preamps out there. So, a good preamp set you back easily $500 to $1,000 if you're talking about a serious preamp. And I think that would make a bigger difference than getting an interface that has inevitably a billion features that you don't need and a better preamp, but it's not a external badass preamp necessarily. And then
How about Burr? When you hear the term Burr Brown,
the
I have a
Texas
Tascam
Instrument chips.
UH7000 that brags to have Burr Brown
Yeah, a lot of preamps use these. So
chips.
So that's like Texas Instruments mic preamp chip usually, or also their line drivers. And Yeah, I even some like really snotty high end preamps like the Cytec. I think it's MPX4A. It's a 4-channel good mic preamp. Like that's probably a $900 piece right there. And one of the upgrade options is Burr Brown chips in there. Or I've also got a Studio Projects 8-channel mic preamp that sounds great. And what does it have in it? It's got Burr Browns. So yeah, because a lot of these at this level, a lot of the preamps are just on a chip. Maybe
it's the same chip over and over. A lot of the times, many different.
Yeah, and it is
brands.
different how they decide to implement it. Everyone has their own magic and whatever, but they are very much using the same chips, and that is especially true with the converters. So don't be fooled like sometimes that you're getting something better when everyone's still shopping at the same supermarket and
Right.
But then the last thing is the microphone, and I think with a microphone, my opinion is hang out with the $100 mic, find one that works well enough, and then just skip straight to the 416, 414, U87, 103, something in that range. Because a lot of what happens with the microphones is that sometimes people are just name shopping. And so if you have a mic that is excellent but isn't a name, it doesn't get you some of the benefits that being able to say, hey, on my website, here's my gear. And this 416, it's like, boom, I have the mic. There's no question about it. So is it better to spend $800 on a 416 or $600 in some other slightly less known mic?
Yeah, we covered that on another show. I was skeptical that mattered. But you guys said in different ways that will possibly influence bookings, when you've got these industry respected pieces of kit in your system.
For sure. And I'm the first one to say that clients maybe don't know and don't care. But if that is something, then consider those middle ground mics that haven't achieved some sort of iconic status as a little bit. You're paying for that name, and if you can market and improve your business based on that name, then definitely go for it.
Interesting. That's an interesting thought. Yeah, I mean, I could name a ton of $500 mics that I like, but I never considered that factor. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I would probably go with a shotgun if you're in the mid-range, because your environment's probably not going to be perfect. I mean, the removal blankets have proven themselves with the tri-booth, so that's obviously a goer to I'd get some kind of control of the environment. I would definitely invest in a preamp, as Robert said, and for the money, I would buy a Grace M101.
How much are those?
Under $1,000, $700-800 range, I think.
So they're like in the same price range as like a John Hardy single channel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then of course the sound card, which we've discussed, would be an RME, which I use here anyway. So,
you know what? Since you brought it up, I hate that you can't find a simple, high quality AD converter that plugs into your computer with USB that doesn't have freaking preamps in it.
Apogee Mini-Me. Actually, that has preamps in it.
Most of them do. Now, some don't. Some have switchable inputs, but most of them, when you put it in quote-unquote line input, all it's doing is inserting a pad.
Right.
And you're still going through the damn preamp. So in my experience, you got to go up to the Apogee Duet or the Apollo or the RMEs to get proper line in. So you're spending $700-800 to not use the damn thing and just bypass the preamp. It sounds crazy.
There's no interface in the low end that has a good, just here's a converter going in.
There used to be the company called Echo, and they made these fire faces. They were just firewire in and out. And I used to love their Echo Audio Fire too. It was firewire, line in, line out, TRS. That was it, and a headphone
What
jack.
about like a Dante? I bet
Discontinued.
Dante makes like a little Ethernet.
That would even be awesome. A little thing that just is line
Plugs
in,
straight
line
into
out,
your
and
router.
Ethernet.
You know?
Yeah, that would be super cool because now you've got an interface that appears anywhere in your entire studio.
Yeah, you have to buy the Dante driver, which is like $30, and then it can go onto any computer in your whole studio.
So I would love to experiment with that stuff. But anyway, it's a sidebar rant. Sorry, Andrew.
yeah, that's all right.
I think one interface company that we haven't talked about that makes good interfaces is Motu. O2 actually makes some very good
Right.
stuff with DSP built in, a very actually comprehensive
Yeah.
system.
They have not done a great job of marketing themselves at all. And they've released a new line recently. It's got some cool bells and whistles like loop back. And I think they deserve some attention. I've dabbled with their stuff over the years. They've always missed out on something I needed that made me, not like them.
I actually think they have some very compelling stuff, especially if you you look at their WebRTC, or not WebRTC, sorry. Now it slips my mind, the acronym, but basically it's like Dante. The problem is you have to get a expensive router. And here's where I check out. I'll talk to you guys.
Sorry, good luck. See you on the other side, Robert. And he's off into the pits of
abyss.
support.
Yeah. Back to the shotgun, and I'm just to save some money because we did obviously Source Connect because Robert's involved, but I reckon that's probably a good investment to have Source Connect. Just Source Connect standard on your machine.
Yeah, at that $3,000 range, like you're probably getting to this point where you should have Source Connect available. You're probably starting to really do work from home, not just do auditions. And that's when Source Connect and tools like it become clearly start to show their worth in terms of bookings, what kind of work you can access, and what you're maybe by this point, maybe by now you've got an agent, and maybe that agent requires you to have it. So, yeah. That's a good question.
Now, it's a question for you, George, because you're involved with the Tribe booth. So because we haven't got them in Australia, in fact, anywhere outside of North America, what would you advise someone to do if they can't get a Tribe booth?
So as I alluded to earlier, what a Tribe booth is, if you haven't seen one already, you can go to tribebooth.com, TRI booth. You'll notice it looks eerily similar to a tent made out of moving blankets, because that's what it is. It's just an incredibly nuanced, well thought over design. But this is not something that is exclusive in terms of making one for yourself. Anybody can make one of these. It may not have the exact design and shape as ours, and it may not be as easy to transport as ours, but it will have a similar result. And that is creating an enclosure and lining it with moving packing blankets. Packing blankets are really good at absorbing a lot of sound and echo. Sometimes you have to use more than one layer. My Echo just said hello.
Yes.
That was my Amazon Echo, sorry. Maybe you should name my Echo something other than Echo.
Yeah, good idea.
Good idea. When you're consulting on acoustics, you say that word a few times a day. But yeah, if you get rid of that reverb with layers of blankets are so incredibly affordable, and you can cover a large area very quickly. Do they look nice? Not particularly. Not all that sexy, and spousal approval scale is not that high. But they are darn effective. If you have this, say you have $100 to spend, you'll go way further with sound blankets, moving blankets, whatever you call them, Fernie pads, as we say in Hollywood, than you would with, say, acoustic foam. You're going to get way more bang for your buck out of sound blankets. So yeah, just want to kill off all the reflective surfaces around you from above and around surrounding you. The floor is not quite as important, but certainly the ceiling and your surroundings is very important. So that's a good way to emulate what the Tribe booth does.
Yeah. So we're basically saying we can make a really good space out of moving blankets. I'm saying get Source Connect. We talked about the vanity of having a 416, but I'd probably I'd buy the NTG5 and then use the balance of the cash to buy Source Connect.
Right.
The Grace M101, because it's just a fantastic preamp. There's no question about that. It's super clean. And I'm just working on the sound card, how you get that into the Grace into your computer.
Yeah, when you're a PC, you have a few more options in terms of having like an actual internal card.
One thought is like you can get the what's the cheapest sound card that just has a digital in and out, and then you can go buy a snotty A to D and plug it in.
Yeah, there are some. There are a few oddball interfaces out there with like optical in and out. And cool thing about optical is it's electrically isolating your computer from your studio. So that reduces noise, ground home loops, and all kinds of stuff. So that's another way to surprisingly lower your noise floor.
Here's something I love, which is a slightly dated setup. It was great and still is great. But back in the day, Apogee made the AD1000, which had a Millennia preamp in it.
Yeah.
Even though they couldn't say it officially.
Oh, okay.
Oh, nice.
And had an Apogee converter. Really, I mean, just fabulous piece. Good analog front end with a good converter, and it's just a converter, and it had optical in and out. And then you've got your Macs that had on the laptops optical built in.
Oh, back in the day, most of them did.
Yeah.
The Mac Minis had optical in and out. Yeah.
Optical in and out to the Mac. You have an extremely good setup that way, and it's very small. Or not, I mean, it's still like a third of a rack space box for the Apogee, which amazingly weighs as much as they could make a third of a rack space box weigh.
Well, as long as we've gone on about the medium one, I can't imagine how much time we could invest talking about the high-end studio.
Well, we could either save that for another show or...
Yeah, that may have to be a teaser for the next episode.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
Holy cow, we could do a whole show about nothing but budget, relatively unlimited, the dream home studio.
I'm imagining a controversy right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I reckon we should talk about the dream one next week.
Okay, done.
I think that sounds like a capital idea.
This show was mixed by Voodoo Sound. Edit by Andrew Peters, using Source Connect Now and Rode microphones, with technical support from George the Tech Whittam. Don't forget to subscribe and like us.
You look for trouble.